Welcome to the Crimeycade podcast. Stephen Lucas, man conservative crime fighter, here once again. And gosh, it's been a couple weeks, hasn't it? Yeah, I was supposed to do a podcast last week, and things didn't go according to plan. In fact, jeez. Well, let's get right to it. We are episode 106 officially, but we had to skip 105 for obvious reasons. Last time we were together, a couple of weeks ago, our guest was Rich Ambler. He is the first runner-up of the 1990 Nintendo World Championships. Had a nice little discussion a couple of weeks ago, and it's another one of those folks who needs to get his own trading card. And so there was a new round of trading cards over the weekend. Beginning of the week. And a few friends of mine that I know got their card finally. Tracy Gleave and the Game Masters, Brandy Amer and Stephen Haywood, got their card. The Game Masters are going to need a bit of a revision before they publish it, but Tracy's card is ready to go. And congratulations, there were some others that got a trading card. I don't know them personally, but maybe there'll be a future guest on the podcast at some point in the future. So, our guest last week was supposed to be Ben Bizzle, who is associated with Filthy Games Room, and they were a vendor, and now I've just been joined by someone who is very upset that I did not let her spend enough time outside after I got home. In fact, she's demanding that I let her out again, but I got to do the podcast, and I got to keep tabs on her when she's outside because she'll, she's, despite being an 18-year-old cat, she wants to wander and wander quite a bit. So, got to keep tabs on her because she can't, she's declawed and she doesn't have her canines, so she can't really defend herself too well. She can run, but that's about it. But I don't want to. I want no harm to come to her because there's other cats and dogs in the neighborhood. Anyway, so Ben Bizzle will be rescheduled for July the 9th. I believe 8 o'clock start time. He might want to go later. We'll see. But why did I have to reschedule it? Well, I can't. I don't have any of the storm. Oops, I took myself off for a second. Let me do something right here. I think I can put up one of my photos. Actually, I'm going to go over here for a second. Stan, I did not have this loaded up. But last week for that matter, there was a lot of bad weather. In fact, there was a line of storms last Wednesday that went from Chicago, or actually to the Canadian border, all the way down to the Texas-New Mexico border. I'm trying to pull up my pictures I posted in the Facebook group, and I'm not having much luck. Here we go. Oh, here we go. Let me full screen this sucker. Now, present or invite, share screen. Let's show you. Yeah. So here you have it. This was across the street. As you can see, there's a camper right here, and it's totaled. This tree was a massive tree, and it split apart and punctured the roof over here. Here's another tree in the neighborhood. See how the roots are sheared off? That was on top of this house, and That sat there a few days before they could get it off the roof. That was on Monday. And here's a tree that looks like they ripped the carpet out with the roots. Yeah, this is this little patch between the sidewalk and the road. That's this. And this is another tree in the neighborhood, torn apart, landed on the roof, split into pieces, and I gotta go backward. I'll Nope, it's not up here. All right, let me take this down. I had my pictures in here somewhere. Let me pull that. I should have my pictures in here. I don't. Doggone it. Actually, I gotta pull it off my own. Oh, I'm gonna show you my house in a second. Let me find. I know I sent them to Brandon Travis, but anyway, Wednesday, tornado tore through the north side of my city. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, that's a tree. It's on top of that landed on. Yeah, that's the point of impact right there. Not good. And this has all been cleared out. Yeah, that's the section of tree that broke off this tree and ended up on my house. That was Thursday night, and the power was knocked out as well. The tree fell on top of my house. I hadn't lost power yet, and I basically contacted Ben and said, we're going to have to put this off till next week, put this off to another time. And then the power went out and stayed off for about 5 hours. So, not good. Not good. Anyway, let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation here. And here we go. So he will be July 9th. Crimeycade Podcast on Facebook and Twitch. Facebook.com/Crimeycade, Twitch.tv/Rapsheet. And past episodes are on tiny.cc/PWCI on YouTube. 1 second. I do have to acknowledge we had bad weather yesterday as well. More tornado touchdowns. I heard Charleston and Effingham got hit really hard. Buildings destroyed, and yeah, the fourth wave of this mess went through and did a lot of damage. There's a tornado touchdown around the same area where we had one last week. And this Sunday, another wave is coming in. So, batten down the hatches. This summer, well, actually, technically, summer starts the 21st, but this spring is going out with a bang, for certain. All right, 2 weeks ago was the Illinois Game Con. It's in the books. I posted video, a 360 walkthrough. The biggest thing that I concentrated on this year was the 20 game challenge, and I had one of these cards here. Yes, 20 challenges. All different consoles. Even one where you had to hunt the convention hall to track down Pinkman. And there are some games in there. Apparently, I was the only one to clear all 20 challenges. I got a few autocomplete points in the middle of that, too. So, I completed the most challenges that weekend. Nobody else, I guess, did the card and got rewarded as a result. Also, that weekend was, yes, I mentioned they got their trading card, CourseCon. And unfortunately, things didn't go off without a hitch for these guys. Haywood's truck got broken into, and there's a bit of a controversy that Columbus, Ohio seems to be kind of tolerant of vehicle break-ins. There were multiple vehicles broken into in the hotel parking lot near where CourseCon was being held, and anybody that tolerates crime, that's gonna affect your gaming convention. It's gonna affect my decision whether to go out there or not. Because I don't want my vehicle broken into if somebody's tolerant of crime happening in their city. That is gonna make me think twice about going out to that city. And wherever the mayor and local officials are in Columbus, Ohio, they better get their heads out of the rear and deal with the problem. As Angel is walking across my desk looking for a way down, she wants the chair that I'm sitting in, but she ain't going to get it. Ugh. What are you doing, little girl? You get down. Anyway. Thankfully for Haywood, nothing was lost except for the money on the broken passenger side door that was smashed. Kind of made things miserable for him the rest of the weekend. Bit of a fuss over this. Representatives from Atari Age, the website, made their way over to the Goblin Ghost Arcade last week, and Rob Elvey posted his personal review and was not thrilled with what he says was about 100 games not playable during his visit. He and 4 others went out to the arcade and plugged down the $25 admission fee, and was not, I guess he must have hit several games he wanted to play, and they were not working. So about 10% of the games that are on the arcade floor. Yeah. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct, businessman. Hurricanes were not working. Games go up and down all the time. Controllers do fail. If you're chasing a score, yes. Oh, you got a lot of dirt on him. I may have to talk to you later. Games you can go up to the front desk. If a game like crashes or something, you can go up to the front desk, have them cycle the power on it. Hopefully it reboots. If it's a minor controller issue where the joystick is not working, like they can do a quick fix on the control panel, or if it's loose or whatever. Now, I will grant that there are some games on the Goblin Ghost Arcade floor that probably do need to leave the floor because they've been down for several months, in a few cases, even years. And because there's the space problem, that's looming large. There's like 20 working games that are off the floor now because of lack of room, and they're doing some 2-in-1s with those. But there are a few games that need to leave the floor because they're not going to get fixed anytime soon. It may have a bigger problem, and since they acquired those new buildings, or a bunch of new buildings, they haven't figured out a use for them. They're storing some of the games in those buildings right now. They could move those games that have been long not functional into one of those buildings, so Doug Fox can work on them a little more, work on them while the arcade is open. Maybe put some more time on them to get them fully functional again. But yeah, that is a problem, and very rare that 100% of the games are fully working. It's just the way it is. And let me see this. Maybe I'm going to invite Mr. Alfie on my podcast and have a discussion with him. Would you like that? Uh-oh. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that would be yeah, maybe I should invite him on my podcast. See how that I need to have a knockout drag out fight with somebody at some point, because I kind of swing that way. I like having those hard hitting debates. And we got to do our weekly Beezer post, of course. It's not on the arcade floor as of yet. Update on the arcade tournaments. So they've announced the main gaming league, Aussie Arcade, has announced the 6 games to start the tournament, season 68. And the games are Asteroids Deluxe, Kicks, 1942, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, Space Invaders 95, which is a game Galvin Ghost does not have on the floor available for play. That's the one in the Space Invaders lineup that they have not got their hands on yet, that I know of. The Attack of the Lunar Loonies. But my main concern is this one. Now, why Super Mario Bros? There are a lot of rules on that game for a score to be valid. And because of how many rules there are, and you have to record, and if Galvin Ghost accepts your score, it's got to be recorded. If the main gaming league is just going to accept a screenshot, I mean, how are you going to enforce the rule set on this? And plus, I don't like having so many daggum rules to follow. It should be gameplay rules only, not human made up rules. And certainly speedrunners do not follow the rules on this game, what Twin Galaxies came up with. So, and last slide before I bring my guest in. So it's 2 months out until what would be the 2026 T20 tournament. So it's 2 months before anniversary. No announcement has been made as to whether it's going to be held this year or not, or if something different is going to be held. It's either it's not going to be held or it's going to be delayed after anniversary. But wait until the last minute on this. I mean, I've had a few people say they would come to enter T20 this year. But because we don't have an announcement as to whether it's being held or not, and it's like Doc is thinking about doing something else, it may not happen. And plus, the time demands Doc and his team are having of late, they may not be able to do a T20 this year because they've got to put that time in on something else. It's unfortunate, but it's looking that way right now, that we may not have a T20 before anniversary. It's going to be, well, focus may be entirely on challenge cards and the high scores that are submitted. Anyway, tonight's guest is one of the legends of the arcade industry. He is on trading card number 28, 239, and 3426. He worked back in the day for Gottlieb and Williams Electronics. He had a hand in creating the orange noser that we all love. He is Warren Davis.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
You're coming in loud and clear.
Glad to hear it.
And see, they're already going. Your fans are already. Tracy, I hope you remember who she is, the world's best female joust player.
Oh, wow.
Yes. That's what
impressive.
It's about that she got this week. All right. And Doc Mac also says hello. He streamed earlier today. Let's start from the beginning. You went to college. Where did you go to college to learn to be a programmer?
Yeah, I went to RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York.
So when you went to coding school, and what did you work with back then?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy there. This was in the 1970s, the early to mid 70s, and basically I was taking a new program, right? So there was computer science, which was under the math department, and there was engineering, electrical engineering, which was pretty much hardware rather than software. But when I started at RPI, they started a new program called Computer and Systems Engineering, which was sort of interdisciplinary hardware and software. And I kind of jumped at the chance to get into that program because that's what I was interested in. I wasn't interested in just hardware, and I wasn't interested in just software. I wanted to kind of figure out how they work together and integrate them and stuff like that. So, but it was crude. Like there were no terminals. Like you couldn't sit down at a terminal with a CRT and type. They didn't exist. Well, I mean, they existed, but not for students. You had to and we were learning like Fortran. That's what we were coding in.
I know what that is. Yes.
Yeah.
I went to Yes, I went to school to learn to be a coder, but I got out of it once in the 2000s because computer IT kept evolving as and I never got object oriented programming. I cut my teeth on BASIC, COBOL, and Pascal. They were still teaching Pascal in college, but companies weren't using it. It was just database. It's like the colleges were always behind, but you
felt that
you
way.
were lucky because you got in its infancy.
Kind of. I was also lucky because I had a computer in high school, which was really, I mean, this is the 70s. This is before PCs. They didn't exist, my high school had a computer that was like a desk. It was the size and shape of an L-shaped desk, and it had a typewriter, and you talked to it by typing, and it would, read the keystrokes, and then it would talk to you by typing, and it would print out, and it would talk to you, and you'd see it on a piece of paper. It also had a paper tape punch and reader, which was interesting, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't like today. It wasn't anything like today. It wasn't even like the 80s and 90s,
I can say I did see a contraption like that back in the day in a loan finance company that my dad worked for. They had one of those.
I'll give you a little tidbit, a little factoid. The computer that was at my high school was featured, not the same one, the same model, was featured in an episode of I Dream of Jeannie with Barbara Eden. There was an episode where, I don't know, it had something to do with Jeannie's birthday. And there was this thing, they were in a big computer room, and in the middle of this room was this desk that was the same model as the computer we had in my high school. So there you go.
Who is the manufacturer? Just curious.
Monroe Business Machines.
Not the good old IBM or Tandy or...
No.
I wonder if that's kind of the same deal that was featured in the music video I, Robot by Alan Parsons.
I don't know.
Not sure. I don't know if you saw that video, but that's certainly featured prominently.
Yeah, I probably did, but I don't remember it.
It's one of my favorite music groups, I believe.
I was always a fan. Yeah.
So from there, since you didn't have a screen, you had to use Scantrons or punch cards through a machine to program it. And I don't know if I think this is before programming languages, correct? Or nay?
Well, I mean, Fortran was a programming language, and COBOL was around, but assembler was certainly around. I learned assembler in college, although I don't think we did anything. It was always very theoretical. We didn't actually learn a specific assembler language. We kind of learned a generic assembler language, and we would have to write things generically. But it wasn't really much different than an actual assembler language. But I didn't really start using assembler language until Gottlieb. And that was fun.
Now, let me just back up a little bit. You're going through the trade school. Once you graduate, what did you envision yourself being, a video game designer, or did something inspire you to go that direction?
Well, I dreamed of being a video game designer. I didn't think that was possible. I mean, I the first arcade games came out when I was a freshman. I was
Mhm.
actually going to college and saw them wheel in Pong and computer space into a game room that used to just have, pinball machines and ping
Mhm.
pong tables. So, there were no video arcade games until I was a freshman in college. And when I saw them, I was like, how do you get a job making these? I mean, I was like all in, but I just didn't know how you got that job. And so when I graduated, I just went and got a regular job as an engineer at Bell Labs. And
Mhm.
I moved, RPI is in upstate New York, and I moved to suburban Chicago
Mhm.
to work for Bell Labs. And they sent me to Ohio State to get a master's degree, where I got a master's in electrical engineering. But and I learned a lot. I got to say, I think I learned more at Ohio State than I did at RPI. Practical stuff. Learned a
Mhm.
lot of theory at RPI. But the practical stuff, they actually had labs where you built stuff. Uh, and I got disillusioned with Bell Labs after a little while and moved to Chicago. And it was just by chance that I saw an ad in the paper when I was looking for a job at one point, and Gottlieb was advertising looking for video game programmers, and I was like, really? That's all I got to do is send in a resume? I didn't think they'd take me, but they did.
Now, did did you have to show that you know how to create programs? I mean, create
Yeah.
something on a screen.
Yeah, I mean, you might think that I would, but no. I mean, they took my background, working at Bell Labs for a few years, my degree, and they assumed that that was, the bona fides, and that I would be qualified. But there were a lot of guys working there at Gottlieb, which was the video department was very small. They were just starting up. Gottlieb was one of the last companies that got into the video game business, one of the last pinball manufacturers, I should say. But a lot of the guys they had there were sort of self-taught. Like they didn't study in college. They had just programmed their own games on, some Radio Shack computer, and that
TRS-80.
got them in. Yeah, yeah, kind of stuff like that. So, but yeah, no, I didn't. They didn't have any like, and honestly, I don't know how they would have judged me because the guys who were hiring me didn't know how to program. So, I don't think they were in a position. I did interview with other guys that worked there who were programmers, so those conversations probably worked in my favor.
Uh, being that somebody was going through college, being, gosh, graduated SIU in '92 with a 2 year degree. Learned the hard way that needed players wanted a 4 year degree, and then it soon
Mhm.
became a master's degree. It's like,
Yeah.
so entry level coding jobs were getting harder to come by in the '90s, and then it's like H1B kind of ruined everything for a lot of people, and now AI is going to ruin even more coders'
Yeah.
dreams if they want to be a heck of a programmer and create the next, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, AI is a danger for sure. Yeah. It's not it's nowhere near as ready as people seem to think it is, but it's a genuine danger, I think.
Yeah, it's like there's certain people that think they can put the genie back in the bottle. I don't think that's going to happen. I know
It's
there's
gonna,
been,
yeah, I think it's going to be like any other technology, A lot of times new technology comes in, puts people out of jobs, and what we got to do is find a way to work with that technology to leave people in control of it.
yeah.
And we might have people who are AI specialists who will use it for other people who aren't experts, and make sure that it doesn't do the stuff it's not supposed to do. It's got to evolve, and that's the thing. Any new technology, we're always playing catch up. The government's trying to figure out, well, what's good and what's bad, and what do we need to control, and what do we need to let free, It takes years. It takes like a generation. We're still figuring it out with smartphones, So AI
Yeah,
is going to be like that.
yeah, I read an article today, and this like AI, the AI race is getting to be critical in terms of military preparedness because AI may be fighting the wars instead of and making the decisions instead of humans, and you start going towards uh, the world that you worked on an arcade game for, the Terminator. Yes, I fear that that Chat GPT is the real world's version of Skynet.
Yeah, it kind of is. But you don't want to put Chat GPT in control of anything physical. If you want to have a conversation with it, that's fine. But you definitely do not want to put it in control of anything physical. And if the military does that, then boy, they are making a huge mistake, and we will all feel it one day. I mean, I'm not saying there won't be a time where it's ready,
Yeah,
for military use, but it's not now.
I know, but China's racing us on this one, so we gotta kind of keep an eye out. But anyway, yeah, and I'm not even gonna get into the whole data center controversy that's been
Mm,
raging on. But all right, so what you joined Gottlieb what year?
1982,
19,
January.
that was late. What was Gottlieb's first arcade game? Do you have it on there?
They licensed a couple of games from Japan. New York, New York was one of them, and oh man, I always forget the name of the other one. But there was another one, and then the first in-house game was Reactor by Tim Skelly, and that was developed in-house. And they also were making sort of like a hybrid pinball video. It was basically a pinball machine with a video game monitor in it, and there was a point where you switched over and played this video game within the pinball machine. That was called Caveman.
Yes, GGA has it. It's
Yeah. Oh my
I
God.
wish I could get that 100% working because I want to chase the score on it. I got second place. I haven't been able to do it since. Ugh. So okay, from there, I don't know what we got the formation of starting to work on the game you're very much known for, Q Bert.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't want to. I think the story's been told a lot of times, so I kind of want to focus on the unsolved mysteries surrounding it.
Sure.
We know how it was created, and I had Jeff Lee on here, and he's told the story a number of times also. But oh yes, Tracy and swearing in video games. I guess is it really swearing if it's just a bunch of random punctuation marks?
Well, I don't think so, but you can think whatever you want. People hear a lot of stuff coming out of Cubert's mouth, but or Cubert's nose, but yeah, no, it's just it's gibberish.
The gibberish that Qbert says when he got injured in the game was it a voice sample and then distorted, or was it just something that was just created out of thin air or by a scratch?
Well, I mean, it was we had the speech chip that put out phonemes of human or English speech. So the little bits of the and vowels and stuff, and you'd have to string those together in a certain way to get them to say English. But Dave Thiel, our sound designer, he hated this chip and thought the sound was terrible and very robotic and not human sounding. And he had the great idea of just throwing random numbers at it. I mean, I've since learned that the algorithm's a little more complicated than that, because he did have some other pitch related things in there and stuff. But anyway, it's, whatever he did is genius. It sounds like cursing, but it's not.
So he wasn't a fan of voice synthesis in video.
Well, he wasn't a fan of this chip that we had.
Okay.
Because it was used in pinball machines. It was just on our standard soundboard. I mean, Kubert does say some things in English. He says bye bye, and he says I'm turned on when you turn the power on the machine.
Mhm.
But there was I think he had to get it to say things like bonus for pinball, and it just never sounded right. It just always sounded like bogus or something. Just not. It just didn't sound human. And of course, speech chips got much better later. But we're talking 1982.
I know Midway, Bally Midway had Wizard of War, and it had fully digitized speech, and I believe it came out in 1980.
Oh, that may be. I don't know.
So I guess Bally Midway, I guess made more progress in that direction, but they were using it for pinball machines as well. So, uh, we know Kubert all too well. Um, when the game was created, which came first? Because I've heard claims that faster, harder, more challenging Kubert, the difficulty with that was initially what Kubert was, and the difficulty was dialed down. That is, elements were taken out to make it easier.
Yeah, no, that's not exactly true. Uh, Kubert was structured the way that the game came out, but it was faster
Mm-hmm.
because that's the way I initially programmed it faster. And when people in the office were playing it, they're like, "Hey, man, it's too hard. You got to slow it down." So I would slow it down and slow it down. We put it on test, and people would struggle with it. And so I kept slowing it down to the point where I felt it was just too slow.
Mm-hmm.
But it was my first game, so I was new to tuning. I really didn't know the intricacies of that,
Mm-hmm.
and I just had to make a best guess. But once it went out, even though a lot of people were learning it and still found the original to be very hard, the way it went off the production lines, I thought it was too slow. And so, and then we get reports back that like somebody in some part of the country would play it for like 10 hours on one quarter. And then that was really bad news because you don't want a game that somebody can sit on forever. That operator's not going to make any money, and that's not good for sales. So that worried me. So that's what prompted me. I mean, it was almost immediately after Kubert came out, within a month or two, that I started making these tweaks to make it harder and faster. And it's also the restructuring of the levels and things like that to try and get it to get harder sooner. But I love faster, harder, more challenging Kubert. It kicks my butt. It's to this day, I'm challenged by it.
Who came up with Q Bertha? Because that was a late addition, I think.
Yeah, that was an addition for faster, harder, more challenging Kubert. Honestly, I don't remember whose idea it was. It was either me or Jeff Lee, because we were both throwing ideas out, ridiculous, silly, funny things. But yeah, it was one of us.
Now, when you start getting reports that people were marathoning the game, did you come into awareness that there was a score chasing community in its infancy?
No, not then.
Galaxies was kind of in formation.
No, at the time, 1982, 1983, I was not aware that there was this community. I had no idea. I found out about it much later and was fascinated by it. And then, of course, over the years, I've gotten to meet a lot of the record holders, and some of them are good friends of mine now. But no, at the time, I wasn't even aware.
Have you had contact with the world record holder of Kubert? And that took several days to get, I think.
Well, I was in touch with George Lutz, who was going for the record years ago. I talked to him during some of his attempts to just sort of congratulate him and spur him on. I never got to meet Doris Self, who was a Kubert champion at one point. And honestly, I haven't met anybody else. But I knew about Doris, but I never met her.
I believe she was older too.
Yes, she was.
I don't know if she's still with us or not.
No, she passed quite a while ago.
Okay. The record officially, according to Google, says 37 million points, which took almost 85 hours straight
Crazy.
at Richie Knuckles arcade
Oh wow.
when
Okay.
it existed.
Now, who's the record holder there? Who got that score?
No, that's it. George Lutz.
Oh, George Lutz. Okay, so no one's beaten him. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Nobody's played for God. They didn't have to play 4 straight days. My God.
Oh yeah. No, it was crazy. And there was the one time he made an attempt and a janitor accidentally unplugged the machine when he was like 2 or 3 days in. That was heartbreaking. Oh my God.
Pissed.
Yeah. But I'm glad he came back and nailed it.
I know the greater risk is the game crashing during that run, but that didn't happen this time. Now there were some other oddities with Q Bert. I think there was a recorded instance of Q Bert in a suitcase as a demo unit. You aware of that?
No.
No.
Never heard about that.
I seem to
ever.
remember it, but I don't know. It just popped up. Okay, so that looks like that's a bit of lost history. There was also a version of Q Bert. They had the full size cabinet, I believe a cocktail, but a cabaret of Q Bert showed up at Galvin Ghost Productions along with Mad Planets as a prototype. Do you know anything about
well, yeah, Gottlieb did make cabaret size cabinets. I don't know how many they made. I don't think they made a lot, but yeah, they did make those.
All right, so I think I was looking up a picture of this Q Bert in a suitcase, but it's not coming up on search. Oh well.
A suitcase.
Yeah, I seem to recall there was something like that. What about now? There's another. Well, let's not go to the sequel yet. I don't know if Q Bert was the first game to have product placement. That might belong to Bud Tapper, but Q Bert promoted the soft drink Mel Yellow for a time.
Yeah, because Gottlieb was owned by Columbia Pictures, and around that time, Coca-Cola bought Columbia Pictures. And when Coca-Cola bought Columbia Pictures, all the Pepsi machines went away from Gottlieb and were replaced with Coca-Cola machines. But that's one of the reasons that Mellow Yellow was introduced. There was a Mellow Yellow version of Q Bert. We were instructed to add, the proper artwork and stuff. So we had, Jeff created this, this thing of Q Bert's on a disc spinning up around this big cup, like original. And actually, I think it's in Faster, Harder, More Challenging Q Bert, but it's sort of a generic thing. And we wanted, we had Q Bert's nose extending and becoming a straw. And I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like the word we got back from Coca-Cola was they didn't want that for Mellow Yellow. They didn't want his nose becoming.
Well, it kind of looks like that Q Bert is spewing snot into the can, not drinking out of it. Plus, you're not supposed to drink out of your nose anyway.
Yeah. Well, Q Bert doesn't have a mouth.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Although the cartoon, they put a mouth on him.
Yeah, and arms.
What were your thoughts about Saturday Supercade?
Well, I mean, it's an honor. It's gratifying to see that something you created was turned into a Saturday morning cartoon show. Mm-hmm. But this is the story I always tell. People told me, when people found out we made Q Bert, either me or Jeff or Dave, they'd say, "Well, what were you guys smoking when you made that game?" And when we looked at that Saturday morning show, we were like, "What were those guys smoking when they came up with this idea for a Saturday morning cartoon show?" Q Bert's a greaser. He's got, he's wearing a leather jacket for his high school, and coilies like a thug, greaser kind of a thug. And yeah, the whole thing was just like, it was like Archie. I guess they based it on Archie, maybe. I have no idea. I have no idea where they got any of this. But I can understand their dilemma, because here they're given this character that really didn't have a story. I mean, I didn't create the game to give Q Bert a story. In fact, I was kind of very much against that. A lot of game designers back then, even though their game was just shoot this, shoot that, they wanted a story attached to it, and I resisted that. I just thought, I just want to do something that's fun, and it's kind of like a puzzle solving, and the puzzle is the reason for it to be the story. There's no story, so there really wasn't a story that they could latch onto, and so they created their own.
Now, Q Bert was created. There's a whole slew of clones. I know of a few. Jaybird was a blatant ripoff of Q Bert,
Yeah, sure.
although all the gameplay elements were there for the Commodore 64, I believe. There's some other games like Pogo Joe, which put their own spin on things. They weren't pyramids; they were just random. They were structures, and sometimes you had to make a big jump to get from one side to the other. What else was there? Well, those are the only ones I can find.
Arbird, or there were a bunch of them.
All right. So eventually, Q Bert had to, not counting Faster Harder, a sequel came out. Q Bert's Cubes.
Right.
The biggest mystery with that one is the horizontal cubes that just popped up out of nowhere. Doc had been chasing, I guess, the one of that for years. He finally got his hands on it, got it in on the arcade floor, and it's sitting next to the vertical cubes. Were you aware of that ever being created, or?
Well, I had nothing to do with Q Bert's Cubes. When Q Bert was a success, I had already done Faster, Harder, More Challenging, and they decided not to release it because it was too soon. But then later they said, would you like to do a sequel to Q Bert? And I said, well, no, I've kind of been there, done that, and I'm moving on to other things. Q Bert was my first game, and I didn't really want to stay in that universe and find more ways to exploit it. I always was of the idea that, look, that we're in an industry where, you make something new. You don't just keep making the same game. Or anyway, so I said no. But then this new guy, we had a young programmer named Neil Bernstein, and he came up to me and said, I've got this idea for a Q Bert type of game. Do you mind if I do it? And I said, no, go ahead, have at it. And that became Q Bert's Cubes.
So for Q Bert, where did you go next? What game did you work on next?
Well, I actually started prototyping some other game ideas, and I was fascinated by the sort of pseudo 3D look of Q Bert, and I actually got pretty far on a game that never got finished or released because I was interrupted by Dennis Nordman, who now is like a pinball legend. But at the time, Dennis was working for Gottlieb as a game designer. He wasn't a programmer, and he wasn't particularly an artist, and that was a tough fit at Gottlieb, because at Gottlieb, the programmers were the designers. So he was sort of struggling to fit in on what could he do, and he certainly needed to get a programmer to work with. But he came to me with an idea. Now, this is after Mach 3 came out. So we were in the Laserdisc era. We've got Gottlieb has a Laserdisc system. Yeah. And Dennis comes to me and says, I've got this idea for like a science fiction B movie Laserdisc game. Would you like to work on it with me? And I was like, yes. I was excited from the get-go. So I dropped that other thing I was working on, and we immediately started working on this Laserdisc game, which was intended to be a kit for Mach 3 and ultimately was released as Us Versus Them.
What game were you working on before you switched?
I mean, it didn't have a name. I actually have a little bit of video footage of it. It's like about 20 seconds maybe, but yeah.
It didn't really. You have it? I can pull it up if you can tell
Oh,
me
I
what
don't have
it
it
is.
at my fingertips. I have it somewhere.
It's
I,
on YouTube.
I have showed it sometimes when I give a talk.
Okay.
I've showed some behind the scenes video at Gottlieb that I it's pretty rare to see. It's not online or anything. Anyway, yeah, this is us versus them. And us, this is same technology as Mach 3. We basically just replaced the background of our, standard hardware, the same hardware as Q Bert basically, but we replaced the background with Laserdisc, whatever's playing on the Laserdisc player.
Sorry, I had a coughing fit right now. Jeez.
Oh, would you like a lozenge?
Yeah, I'm good. I can manage. Do you well? I do have a question about prototypes that never made it out the door that you worked on. I see USS A,
Yeah.
and then the prototype that you were working on before you got interrupted to start on this one. What were some of the prototypes you worked on before you had to that never made it out?
Well, the other one I did at Gottlieb, I really just made for fun, but I had Jeff Lee draw up a hand, right? I guess it would have been like that, an open hand, right? And the animations to close it, and that's it. So it was just sort of a hand that closed, and then he drew up an animation of some flies, and there was no background, again, no story, but we just had random flies flying around the screen, and you had to move this hand. The joystick moved the hand, and you had to move behind these flies. And when you press the button on the joystick, that turned it into a fist. And if you got the fly right in the middle of your hand, when you opened your hand, a dead fly would just plummet down. And I mean, I didn't intend for this to be a game to be released. It was just playing around with an idea, and it turned out to be fun. So it was structured as two-player, one player versus another. So two players, one would be the left hand, one would be the right hand. You'd play at the same time, but we had it set up in the office, and people loved it. People just had a really great time. Now, of course, this is many years later, and there's a whole story how we got from that original prototype to this. But yeah, so the prototype is like 83, 84, and this is like 87, 88, 89, probably 89 even. But yeah, it became Exterminator.
Yeah, you had the original concept, and then it just got developed as the time went on.
Yeah.
Kind of like the unreleased arena that turned into Where's Wars, and neither one got released.
Yeah.
Yes, this was a T20 game, and this took me a while to figure out how to play it.
Yeah, this was pretty complicated. A lot of people had trouble with it. It also had sort of a unique controller. And actually, I remember we played around with a lot of different mechanisms. Like, there was a time where you could only shoot if the hands were all the way to the right or left.
Mhm.
Then you could shoot with it, and you sometimes you could shoot anywhere. But yeah, it took a long time to sort of get it to where it was even just playable, but it really wasn't successful. And part of the reason was there were hardware glitches. There were some noise problems with the board, and it would reset frequently. Those eventually got fixed, and the controllers had problems because they were unique, but those eventually got fixed. It just took a long time, and I think the reputation in the field was ruined because it took so long to get these problems fixed.
But it got a second life at Calvin Ghost, and people played this thing. So
I've seen this in a number, pinball Hall of Fame type places where they have tons of machines. I've seen it brought to shows, retro gaming shows. So yeah, I see it way more than I would expect to, considering I think they only built 250 of them. It's the number I remember.
I guess it's become a cult classic, maybe.
Yeah.
So let's go back to us versus them. Actually, before we move off of this was somebody's house. These were digitized images of somebody's house. I
Yeah,
seem
I
to
mean,
recall.
yeah, Jeff did all the backgrounds. Jeff did all the backgrounds. Now those are my hands.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff will say they're his hands, but they're my hands.
But whose house is this? Is it
I guess
yours or Jeff?
no, Jeff did all the backgrounds, and I guess he based them all on his home.
All right, that's what kind of remembered that. So us versus them. I've heard stories about other games getting filmed. We all know Dragon Slayer. We know the Spectre Files, which is Doc Mack and Brian Cole got finished, despite a few reels of film not surviving. But us versus them, gosh, how was this put together?
Well,
you had to hire actors. You had to come up with a story.
Yeah.
Besides the flying sequences of the game.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing we had to do, and we had a team of like 4 guys working on this. So it was me and Dennis Nordman and Rich Tracy, who was the art director and also served, I think, to a large degree as like a producer. And then we had another guy, Dave. Oh my God, I always forget his last name, and I apologize. But huh? No, no, it was not.
Okay.
But anyway, we had this team of 4, and we just divided things up. But as far as the structure of the game, we all had conversations. Now they had ideas. Dennis had ideas that I sort of put the kibosh on because they just didn't make practical sense, right? Because I was the one who had to figure out how can we do this practically. So you can tell the story, but you also play the game. Like we were talking about changing angles in the middle, like a movie would. You would just change the angle. But that's completely disorienting. You can't target anything. You can't figure out what you're shooting at. And so we realized that wouldn't work. And we came up with this notion that, you'd have maybe 10 or 15 seconds of the story and then 1 minute of gameplay at a certain angle. And then you'd cut away to the ground for a little gag in the middle. And even that, I was concerned that would ruin the gameplay aspect of it. But people ended up loving it. I was proved wrong there.
I recall this with Firefox doing that too. There'd be a quick cutscene in the middle of the level, which kind of saved your tail sometimes.
Right, that's true. It did. But we had like 5 different points of view. Might be a first person behind the plane. You might be a sort of a first, third person where you're above the plane. We had levels where the plane was pointing. Your fighter jet was in the distance facing you. We had, I think, 1 or 2 levels like that. And of course we had side scrolling. And then we also, I was real big on varied gameplay. Like I didn't want this thing to be monotonous, just the same thing all over again.
Yeah.
And then we had the forest scenes where you're avoiding trees by banking. That's your gameplay, is you bank right and left to avoid hitting trees. And then we had the one of the fighter pilots goes into the mothership, and you have to avoid these energy walls. So all of this was just stuff we came up with, and then it was like, okay, well, how do we do it? This forest was in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We went out there. We got a Steadicam operator. Steadicam was kind of new back then. I think there was only one Steadicam operator in all of Chicago, and we hired this guy. And we went into the forest, and some just crazy stories of this 3 days of shooting all of this. And then, of course, I had to figure out how am I going to edit this so the level is playable. And I had a blast doing it. I don't think there's another game that I made in my entire career that was this much fun for me. It was crazy.
You had to have kill zones in frames of video. It's what you had to do.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I came up with because I could track positioning of an object on the screen. Like for the trees, I just needed a start X and an end X. right? And then I knew exactly where this tree was. Um, the energy field things were a little bit harder because they were mostly like triangles. But anyway, it listen, I always was up for a technological challenge, and I would always just, my job is find a solution. Another little bit of trivia: some of the AI on these alien ships I reused for Terminator 2.
Mm.
There's a scene in the beginning of the future part of Terminator 2 where there are these like orbs, and they have a similar AI to Us Versus Them, in that they sort of track where you are on the screen, and they will move away into a different quadrant based on where you are. So,
Where you're pointing your gun.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, some of the original ideas, the camera angles. So, if you were to produce this game today, how different would it be, given the technological advances? Because running off Laserdisc, now we have MP4 files.
Yeah.
Video can be stored on a hard drive.
Yeah.
Obviously, hardware scaling. Certainly, Nintendo certainly did a lot of that.
I mean, I think it'd be a lot easier. We have so many tools to do this. Gottlieb, back in the day, they had to buy like an editing system so I could edit. We used a Sony U-Matic 3/4 inch editing system. So all of the flying footage, we hired people. Basically, me and Dennis went out to California and showed these producers. We hired these producers. We showed them what to do. We were up in a Learjet flying around California shooting footage, and we were saying, this is how we need it shot. We needed like 5 minutes of the plane just moving in a straight line. Whether we were getting horizontal footage or above footage, they needed to get all the angles, and then the footage was sped up. We needed 5 minutes of actual footage to get 1 minute usable in the game. So all of this is sped up about 5 times.
And you'd be using an airplane to shoot this footage. The forest section, that would be perfect for a drone, but I don't think drones were invented yet.
No, we had a Steadicam guy. We had a guy with a Steadicam strapped to him running through this forest in Michigan.
Oh gosh, and plus that how does it keep the camera kind of level without it, let's say, the footage bouncing like crazy because you're running?
Well, it's a Steadicam. That's the beauty of the Steadicam. The Steadicam mechanism absorbs the guy's motion. It was the first image stabilizer for film.
Okay.
Yeah, it was groundbreaking invention, the Steadicam.
Wow. From there, I also see in your credits Joust 2. I've been trying to get Tracy Gleave to chase the world record on Joust 2 since she's the best lady on Joust 1. You got connected to Joust 2 but had no involvement with 1. So going into Joust 2, we jumped ahead because there's a transition between Gottlieb to Williams.
Right. Yeah. Joust, the original Joust was being developed by John Newcomer and Bill Futzenreuter when I was at Gottlieb making Q Bert. They were being made almost at the same time. So yeah, I could not be involved in Joust 1 because I was working at Gottlieb. But strangely, there was a point where John Newcomer was hired away from Williams and came to Gottlieb. But that was towards the end of Gottlieb before it was shut down. And then we were reunited, John and I, at Williams, because I was hired by Williams. He went back to Williams before I was hired, but I was hired at Williams. And there was a programmer working on Joust 2 with John Newcomer, but I guess he wasn't doing well, so they fired him. And then myself and another programmer, Christina Donofrio, we were basically put on Joust 2 to finish it. So that's how I got onto Joust 2. But my
I do,
contributions really were just, programming, finishing up the programming.
and I kind of skipped over because there was an exit story to why you left Gottlieb and joined Williams. Us versus them didn't sell very well because of the Laserdisc issues, and then arcade operators kind of got cold feet on putting in the investment, and plus the video game industry at the time was in a major downturn. This is 83,
Yeah.
84.
Well, yeah, and basically, laser discs were thought to be the savior of video games because of that downturn. Then Laserdisc came out in like 83, and everybody's like, oh my God, we're saved. This is going to be the next great thing. Well, they didn't take into account the fact that these machines were not really ready for an arcade environment. They were consumer models. They would get hot, the discs would warp, or they would get dusty, and they would skip. People would ask for their money back. It wasn't just us versus them. It was every Laserdisc game. So there was what I called the Laserdisc debacle of 1984. But and I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, but that wasn't the reason that wasn't the reason I left Gottlieb, and that wasn't the reason Gottlieb shut its doors. The reason I left Gottlieb was because it was shut down by Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, and again, I don't know the full story about this, but my understanding is that, Coca-Cola, because of the ups and downs of the pinball industry, they didn't want a pinball company.
Yeah.
They had Columbia Pictures, which had this pinball company. They were like, get rid of it. So they got rid of it. It was really sad. But
Did they put it up for sale, or they just shut it down outright?
well, they shut it down. It turns out that the VP who was in charge of pinball, Gil Pollock, negotiated the rights to use the Gottlieb name, and he basically created a new pinball company, and hired like all the pinball guys, hired the pinball department, and then created Premier Technologies. And there was also an attempt by some of the VPs. I know Howie Rubin was one of them, and maybe Ron Waxman, the two guys who ran the video department. There was an attempt to get, rights to the IP of some of the games like Q Bert, but I don't know that I honestly, I don't know what happened, but the rights to Q Bert ended up with Columbia Pictures, which then was bought by Sony. So now Sony actually owns Q Bert.
And there was a Q Bert 3, which was consoles only. I think Jeff Lee did that one.
Well, he was involved in it. I think he did the artwork. Yeah. I was not involved at all.
Were you involved in the Q Bert pinball machine, Q Bert Quest?
No, I was not. Although I was at Gottlieb when it was made, and that was sort of a big compliment to have a Q Bert pinball machine. That was pretty cool. I have played it recently, and it's kind of a bizarre design. I don't get it. I gotta say, as I love pinball, but I don't get that machine. That's crazy. That machine's nuts.
It's different, yes, for sure. I mean, the flippers are not all at the bottom. You got to deal with 4 of them, and you're kind of just trying to keep the balls from draining.
Yeah.
But the bottom half of the playfield, you're trying to keep it on the upper half the entire time. But if it goes to the lower half, you're in trouble. Yes. All right. So the jump from, so we had Joust 2. It wasn't as popular as Joust 1, or at least not was well known.
Not back in the day. It was not. And even while we were working on it, we thought it was kind of dumb that, listen, the whole idea of Joust is you're coming at each other horizontally. You want as much real estate horizontally as you can get. And management basically said, oh, no, you've got to make it on a vertical monitor, because it was intended to be a kit to go into existing cabinets.
Yeah.
And marketing did a study, and they were like, well, most of the cabinets out there are vertical monitors. So, we want it to be on a vertical monitor. So
I'm surprised they didn't make this as an upgrade kit for the original Joust cabs.
yeah, well, maybe they figured that was still doing well. People were playing it. They didn't want to take that away if you can make money off 2 cabinets instead of
know.
1.
I'm surprised they didn't do a second. I'm surprised they didn't do a vertical version of, not vertical, horizontal version of Joust 2 like they did for Q Bert's cubes, or at least that prototype. Unless there's one hiding somewhere.
I do not know of any. As far as I remember, it was vertical from the get-go and it never changed. That was a management decision.
I'm just kind of curious who came up with the Pegasus element. That's the 2.
It would have been John Newcomer. John was the designer, the only designer on this game.
Okay. All right. From there, so we went to Williams. I believe 84 or 83, 84.
More like 86.
86. Okay.
Yeah. I was out of the industry for about a year and a half. After Gottlieb, I worked for a company called Data Logics in Chicago, and was not working on video games at all. I was working on, believe it or not, there really wasn't anything like Microsoft Word that existed in 1983. People, if they want to do online documents, there was this, massive pagination softwares that ran on these big computers. And to do graphics was kind of challenging. There weren't like standard graphics formats necessarily. So there were a number of them. And I was working on trying to convert graphics images that were stored in some weird format into something else. So it was kind of fun. It was graphical, but different. But it didn't last long. It was a year and a half. And then I got a call from a headhunter saying, would you like to go back to video games? And that was a no-brainer. That didn't take me long to say yes. And then when I found out it was Williams, even better. Williams, home of Defender, Stargate, Robotron. God, why wouldn't I want to go there? So I was very excited about going there.
And this was a time when video games kind of got revived. Nintendo got the video game industry kind of single-handedly going again. Atari was just trying to, I guess, changed ownership and was trying to find its footing as to what direction it wanted to go. And it wanted to go the home computer route with the Trammels running the ship. Arcade games started showing up, new ones, and basically the arcade releases of all their home console titles from the Famicom.
Like Williams, the video department at Williams had been completely decimated from the crash, and they were just starting to build it up. So it was very small. There was almost no, maybe there were 3 programmers when I was there, when I started at Williams. And Eugene Jarvis wasn't even there. He went to California to get his MBA, and he didn't come back until after I had started at Williams. But the thing we all realized back in like 86 or 87 was we got to stay ahead of the home systems, because the home systems were, easily putting out the kind of games that graphically that we were doing with 16 colors and that stuff. But we realized we got to up our game. So memory was becoming cheaper and the processor were becoming faster. So we had hardware. Our hardware guy was working on a 256 color system to give us, an advantage over home games, because home games still couldn't get you that. So that was the next step. And Eugene came in and he had ideas about how to do that. And we ended up developing a new system that the first game released on it was NARC. But it used digitizing, because that's where I started working on digitizing, because I knew that with 256 colors, you could maybe get sort of close to photorealism. it's a combination of pixel resolution and color resolution. So if we increased our color resolution, I knew we could do better. And NARC was the beginning of that trip.
Was that the first? Now, when you went to Williams, was that the first game you worked on, or was there something else you were working on?
No, Joust 2.
Joust
2 was the first game I worked on, and then after that, we started putting all of our efforts into a 256 color system. And so I worked on that, on digitizing. I wrote the display system for our new hardware. Eugene wrote the operating system. And then we actually split into two teams, and that's where USSA comes in, the game you were talking about earlier. John Newcomer and I were paired to work on this tank game. It was like the old tank game, looking straight down, overhead view, but all with digitized graphics in a digitized realistic environment. And Eugene and Jack Hager and George Petro started working on NARC. And that was basically how we split everybody up.
Now, NARC or the digitization. So you had to bring in a whole slew of actors playing all these different characters, the villains, the heroes.
I mean, a lot of them were guys who worked there. We had a lot of people there who were just people who worked at Williams.
So it was mostly internal.
Mostly, I'd say, yeah.
I should ask about Mr. Big. We have this huge portrait of him on the wall at the Gottlieb Arcade. Who was that based on? Or who played him?
I think he was like a sculpture, right? I don't think that was a person.
It was not a person. Okay.
Right? Mr. Big, I'm trying to listen. I didn't work on NARC. I didn't work on the game. So I vaguely remember who Mr. Big was. But if I'm remembering correctly, I know that Mark Lafredo. Yeah, let me see here. Mark Lafredo was our hardware guy. He designed all our hardware. And he had a role. But I don't know, not Mr. Big, I don't think. He was somebody else.
Okay.
I think he was just a generic drug dealer.
Okay. So the digitization of actors that got used. Dark was the first game. It got used a bunch of other ones. I guess you could rattle off the list. Mortal Kombat comes to mind first, but what else?
Well, actually, I left. So USSA got canceled, and that led to my leaving Williams for a time. That's when I went to Premier Technologies and I made that Exterminator game, which was with the hands and the flies. So I did that, and we created with a couple of other ex-Gottlieb employees, we created that system, that whole hardware from scratch. And it's really kind of a shame because it was pretty good system once they got the bugs out of it, once they got the noise problems licked. But Exterminator was the only game that came out of that system because Premier Technology never made another video game after that. They sunk all of this effort into making that one game and could have used that system and leveraged it for other games, but they did not. So I ended up, after Exterminator being available, and just by coincidence, I got a call from Williams. We're in the middle of this project and we lost a programmer. How would you like to come back? And that project turned out to be Terminator 2. So I ended up going back to Williams and worked on Terminator 2, which was a dream. That was like fantastic. Loved the movie, loved the original movie. We got to digitize all of the actors and all the props and set pieces, and it was like fantastic. We could make a photorealistic game with all these things from a hit movie. It was amazing.
You had to have had a lot of interactions with famous people because you had Terminator 2. You also had, I guess you could call it a spiritual sequel, Revolution X, which is Fat Chris Bulger's favorite game. Yes. I don't know. He has a bunch of those cabinets. I don't know what attracted him to that one, but who all have you met?
Well, I didn't meet anybody for Terminator 2, honestly. For one thing, I think most of first of all the digitizing was done out in California, or I should say, all the reference video was shot in California.
Okay.
And then it was brought back on tape, and we digitized it back in Chicago. But I didn't get to do any of that. That was already done. So I really didn't meet anybody then. We we occasionally we'd had famous people coming into the offices to record something for a pinball machine, but I didn't usually get to meet them. I did get to hang out with Aerosmith for their entire stay, because everybody on the team of Revolution X was part of that shoot. I was the clapboard guy, so whenever we had to start a scene, I would write it on the clapboard and boom, clap it. So I was there for the entire shoot. And I got to say, Aerosmith was surreal. It was absolutely surreal to have these guys. They were very down to earth, very game to do whatever we needed. They couldn't have been nicer. They couldn't have been more cooperative. It was surreal. Honestly, I don't think I met anybody else famous. I met more famous people being an actor and moving to California. And I'm in California. I've met a lot of famous people because I'm also an actor, and I've worked with a lot of famous people.
You are an actor. Okay, let me jump on that one then, because I don't think that's been covered too much. You have an acting career. What do you do in the Hollywood industry that's not necessarily gaming, coding, correct?
Yeah. Well, I started doing theater in Chicago. And so I feel like I have to start dropping names here. But so in Chicago, I was in a theater company with Jamie Denton. Jamie Denton was on Desperate Housewives. He was Mike the plumber. He just became like, you couldn't go anywhere and not see his picture with Terry Hatcher on a magazine cover back in the day whenever Desperate Housewives was big. But we were in a theater company together. I also met Jim O'Hare, who's still a friend from Parks and Rec back in Chicago. We knew each other. We both worked. In fact, I was his understudy for a play, and then ended up taking over his role when he left. So I met Nick Offerman back in Chicago. We did some industrial film together. So, a lot of people were not famous when I knew them, and then they became famous later, but the Chicago community is a really wonderful, sort of close-knit community. So I still, even though I don't see a lot of people very often, I see some of them every now and then, and it's always lovely. But then when I moved to California, I did theater in California. I started doing TV. I've been on a handful of TV shows. I've never been in anything that I'd say was like a real big, large featured role. But then I also had a day job making games. So, I was really just doing it for fun, and I was having a lot of fun. But I was also working as a guest director for something called the Young Playwrights Festival. There's a theater company in LA called the Blank Theater. And for years, they've produced plays written by teenagers. They would, any teenager in the country can apply, and they would pick the best, what they deemed to be the best 12 plays. And then they would get, people who were, I don't want to say like A-listers, but they would get well-known actors to take roles. And these kids would just be floored because they'd see somebody they knew from TV speaking their words in a role. And it was very rewarding. It was something I did for many years. I don't do it anymore, but I was doing the program still is going on every summer. Anyway, but I met a lot of famous people through that. I directed a lot of famous people, and they've been lovely. They've been absolutely lovely. It's been a joy to know them and work with them. So yeah, no, it's been a crazy ride.
Yeah, I had somebody a few weeks ago, Randy Martin's trying to get some sort of major role in Hollywood before he retires for good. Kind cosplayer and did that Billy Mitchell role. One of my high school classmates is a Hollywood actor now. Not a big name, probably kind of the level that you were describing. She kind of bit roles in a few different series and commercials. I think she had a commercial with Michael Jordan, the basketball player. That was her first one. Yeah, I did not. Yeah, I didn't even know that until she told me that at the class reunion. I was like, "Well, I didn't know all this. Damn, I missed out on that."
I did a scene in House MD with LL Cool J. He was all up in my face.
I know that series. I haven't watched it, but I know what it is. All right. Did any of the actors in Terminator 2 contact you guys to give feedback on the game, or?
This is just second or third hand information, but I do recall being told that Robert Patrick was given, I can't remember if it was the pin or the video game or both, but he was really interested in having that either one or both of those, and they gave him that. I don't know about anybody else. We didn't,
go ahead.
I was going to say we didn't get to use all of the actual actors. We actually got Robert Patrick. It's actually him digitizing the game, and Eddie Furlong, but we didn't get Arnold. We got his stunt double wearing an Arnold mask. So that's who you see in Terminator 2. And we didn't get Linda Hamilton, but we got her stunt double. And I think her name was Debbie Evans, I want to say.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but a lot of people think that it was Linda Hamilton's twin sister in the game, which it is not, because Linda Hamilton's twin sister doubled for her in certain scenes of the movie, but she was not her stunt double. We had her stunt double. Just to clear that up.
Yes. Sometime later, another major game that had a lot of digitized actors was WWF WrestleMania. Or were you a big wrestling fan?
No, and I have to say I had nothing to do with that game at all. In fact, I think I had left Williams at that time because
you're credited for that.
Well, I mean, I created the digitizing system.
Oh, okay.
And the digitizing system, I kept improving it from game to game. And as our hardware got better, and as we could store more palettes of colors, the management of all of those colors became more complicated. And so I would build tools into the software that we used to handle all of that. So yeah, I mean, if anything, I'm just credited for that reason. But I had nothing to do with the game, and I think I might have actually left Williams, because I left Williams in like 1995. Okay. It was after Revolution X. After Revolution X, I was actually developing a Highlander game, which is another game that didn't get very far. I did some prototyping so basically digitized. We had one of our programmers, Jake Simpson, was a swordsman. He knew how to handle a sword. So we videotaped him, and I actually had him sort of fighting himself, But the weird thing about that Highlander game, first of all, it took a really long time to get the rights. We got the rights to the TV show. So the plan was to use the actors who were in the Highlander TV show at the time. But it took forever to get that. We didn't even think we were going to get that. We finally did. But then the other thing was there was such a backlash after Mortal Kombat, like 2 and 3, against violence in video games. I mean, there was a palpable backlash. And management at Williams was going like, I don't know if we can do a game where you cut somebody's head off. And I'm like, what? First of all,
well, if they didn't like it back then, put them in a time machine and bring them to the present day, they'd be really. They wouldn't be just going into orbit; they'd be warping into another dimension.
Well, but keep in mind, this is after Mortal Kombat. Oh, you mean Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat 2? They're already out there. Maybe even Mortal Kombat 3. I can't remember, but that's already out there. And then they're going like, yeah, maybe we should lean back from chopping people's heads off.
Well, if they didn't like that, it's like, what did they have to say about Hollywood movies that was doing it?
Yeah. Anyway.
Yes, there was ratings. Yeah. Well,
so that's another game that never got made.
Yeah. The game actually ushered in the video game rating system for pretty much.
Yeah.
Lethal Enforcers was another game and Night Trap, which was a silly sitcom, but they threw a fit about, women getting killed. Yeah, well, you see that on a regular television anyway, so what's the difference?
Yeah. I mean, listen, it started in the 1950s with comic books. There was that whole push against comic books when, EC Comics came out and they had monsters and stuff, and adults were freaking out that their kids were going to be warped. We had discussions about it with Narc. Narc you had exploding body parts. You had humans exploding in Narc in a semi-photorealistic way. And listen, I was sympathetic because these are arcades. It's not like a movie theater where you can rate it R. You're going to have little kids potentially in these arcades. So if you aren't being careful about that, you can expose kids to graphic images. I mean, it's something to be considered. I was never a proponent of censoring it, but certainly something that you want to think about, right?
Yeah. Well, I can go even further back. Death Race. They threw a fit about people driving a car and running over people.
Yeah, right.
Well, they had to claim, well, they're running over zombies or skeletons or whatever.
You are correct.
I call them a bunch of technology challenged old geezers that long for the days of the manual typer and rotary phone were the ones complaining because they weren't. They just wanted to stay in the dark ages or something. All right. You had to move on to console games at some point. The major character I see you tied to and that was the music playing in the countdown, Spyro the Dragon.
Yes.
How did you get connected to that one, or did you create him?
Oh God, no. Spyro the Dragon was created by Insomniac, and they had 3 very successful games. And then I guess they decided they were done. And NBC Universal bought the rights to Spyro as a character, and they wanted to do a 4th Spyro game. So they went out and hired a company called Check Six, which was a company that at the time I was not working for. This is all happening without me in the picture. Check Six was sort of a new company, and they were developing a console engine, which was not really ready for prime time, if we're being honest. But somehow they managed to put a demo together and convince NBC Universal that they were the guys to do this. Now, they were partnered with a company of artists called Equinox. And they were 2 separate companies, but they had sort of joined together to work on this one game, this one project. And, for a time, they had a very nice situation going. Now, the game designer for this 4th Spyro game was Joel Goodsoul, who was somebody I had worked with at Disney when I worked Disney Interactive in the late 90s. And they were looking for programmers. They were ramping up, and he contacted me, and he caught me at a good time. I was looking for a job at the time. And then I was hired by Check Six. So that's how that started. It didn't end well. It's a long, long story, which I don't know that I could really get into in any kind of detail at all. But the fact that the game,
I don't think I could go for. I'm not planning to go for 3 hours tonight.
yeah, no, it's someday perhaps I will tell that story, but yeah, it's still hard. It still stings a little bit. But the fact that that game was released and finished at all is something of a miracle, because by the end of that project, Joel was gone, long gone. Interference from NBC Universal was making our life difficult. Feature creep was there. We've introduced features that were in no way, or a certain number of levels that we were in no way capable of doing within the time frame. The engine wasn't really ready. The engine had efficiency problems, so we couldn't really get the frame rate. There was all sorts of problems. And like I say, the fact that, the relationship between Check 6 and Equinox had deteriorated to the point where I came into work one day and was told by our receptionist, Warren, it's over. Go home. They're not talking to each other. And I took it upon myself to get the guys from both companies into the conference room and not leave until they agreed to keep moving forward. I couldn't live with the idea of just this game being canned after putting all of this work into it. Now, in a way, am I proud of that? Maybe not. Maybe I'm ashamed. Maybe that I'm the reason that fourth game was released, and that's not a good thing. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, but it's.
Did it get good reviews, or did it sell well, or what?
I want to say no. I feel like it was pretty. I mean, some reviews were actually kind. Some reviews, were treated it somewhat nicely, but overall, I would say it got mediocre to poor reviews. Anyway, but there you have it.
How much of a trial by fire was it to jump from the arcade scene to the console scene and develop games for consoles?
I mean, it wasn't really that difficult. It was actually fun learning new skill sets because, I was doing almost exclusively assembler programming to make video games for arcades. But when we moved into the home market, we were using higher level languages like C, and C#. So actually C++ came first. I learned object-oriented programming, which I enjoyed. And so, yeah.
I never got it.
Yeah, it takes a little getting used to, and it took me a little getting used to, especially as an old schooler who didn't think that way before. But I got on board with it and kind of liked it. I also enjoyed getting into the 3D world because now we were doing a lot of 3D polygons, not exclusively. Disney did some 2D games, but also I worked on some games using 3D polygons, and that was a whole new learning experience for me. So yeah, it was it was the kind of challenge that I welcome, learning something new. It's always fun to learn something new. Well, I shouldn't say that. Not always fun. Usually it's fun to learn something new, especially if it lets you do things that you couldn't do without knowing those skills, right?
What all games did you create for our release for home consoles? Do you
For Disney?
That you worked on that got released?
Well, at Disney, I was more of a tools guy, right? In fact, when I was hired by Disney, the whole idea was they were going to develop games in-house, but there was months between, because I was hired when I still lived in Chicago, and then I actually didn't start until I moved my family out from Chicago to LA, and that took months. So when I got to Disney, they had completely changed their plan and decided they weren't going to make games in-house. And so I ended up being put in the tools side of things. So I was making tools to help develop artwork more efficiently and things like that. But I did work on Mulan's story studio in some capacity, not necessarily game design, and then also Tarzan Activity Center.
So and learning games.
No, they were kind of rip-offs of arcade games, actually, mostly. Some of them were a little bit of learning, but uh, there was also an Aladdin game that never got released. That was a 3D game that really was amazing. The animation was beautiful, and it was like a first person. You are in the world of Aladdin, but that game was like 80% done or 85% done, and Disney scrapped it, which was frustrating. But yeah,
Games, and I know you worked on several games. Some games didn't make it out the door. Did you manage? Did you keep some of the prototypes that, or keep copies of some of these games that didn't make it out the door? Could they possibly
I
know?
wish I did. I wish I did. And I don't know, I do have some discs up in my attic that I haven't looked at in 30, 40 years. I suppose it's possible there's something on one of those discs, but I don't think I didn't. I just, when I was done with something, I didn't think it's really sounds ridiculous, but it didn't occur to me to hold on to it. I have printouts.
Yeah.
I have a printouts of the original Q Bert, faster, harder, more challenging Q Bert. I have a printout of Us versus Them, of the
Mhm.
source code, but no, I don't really think I have anything else. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I worked on. There was a point where we were working on a driving game between Terminator 2 and Revolution X. We thought we would be doing a driving game. So I came up with an actual, algorithm to create road in real time. It had
Mhm.
hills, it had turns. It was pretty cool. It was photorealistic, and I was pretty proud of that. I don't have anything related to that, and don't have any code for like the Highlander, the demo that I was working on. Yeah, I just didn't think of keeping that stuff.
I know.
I'm an idiot.
Periodically, yeah, Atari has been posting builds recovered from development this of late. That games that got released. Um, you might want to pull those discs out from the attic and see if you can recover anything from them. Who knows? It may be buried treasure just waiting to
It's
be
on my list.
unveiled. Yes.
The attic is on my list.
You
I
said a
got to go.
driving game. Your name was attached to the Cruising World Series. How much involvement did you have
Well,
on that?
just because they use my digitizing system to create their textures.
Okay. So there's a lot of games that used your system. Um, you did release a couple of books, and the story about Spyro might be in the third book, might be a third book, but you've
Well,
released a couple.
it's only
Uh,
one, really. It's only one
Only
book.
one?
Yeah.
Well, there's this one, Creating Q Bert and Other Classic Video Games. There's also You Can't Call It Blah 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 Blah, Stories from a Life Making Video Games. You got
It's
two
the,
books.
it's basically the same book.
It
So
is the same book.
yeah, so I wrote that book and self-published it initially in like I want to say 2019. And I only took it to one show, Free Play Florida, in
Mhm.
2019. It was brand new, and I sold a bunch of them there. But then COVID happened,
Yeah.
and any place that I was planning to appear in 2020 got canceled.
Hmm.
And so I'm sitting around, with this book that's already done, thinking, I never even considered sending it to a publisher. I just self published it. So I thought, well, maybe I should see if a publisher might be interested. I could expand the reach of it, because mostly the reach of it originally was just me going to shows,
Hmm.
maybe putting up a little website. But anyway, so I reached out to a bunch of publishers throughout 2020, and I actually found one, Santa Monica Press, bless their hearts. They were interested. And so then that began a year-long process of taking that original book and massaging it into the book that you have on your screen now.
So basically, it's You Can't Call It Blah Blah Blah, second edition.
Kind of. It's essentially the same book. There's been some changes, some streamlining. The images are different. For the most part, not all of them. Some of them are the same. But essentially it's the same.
I'm looking at this photo here. Q Bert's pyramid is upside down. Is that
Yeah.
just cocktail flipping mode?
Yes, that's it. Very good. I'm very impressed. Yes. That would be the only explanation of why it was upside down is I was working on the cocktail version and it's flipping.
All right. Um, so this book is available from Amazon. You can order it. Oh, Tracy says she's got the book.
Thank you,
All right.
Tracy. I hope you liked it.
Looks like there's only 2 copies left in stock on Amazon.
I'm sure they'll find more.
I hope so. So, oh gosh, how many video game documentaries have you been involved in? I know you've appeared in a few of them.
It's the first one was Video Games the Movie in 2012. There was also a TV series made by the same guy, which had a bunch of celebrities interviewing people from video games. And so Tom Arnold interviewed me, but
from the famous Tom and Roseanne Arnold.
That's right. That's right.
Roseanne Barr.
He was great. I love meeting him. And then, Insert Coin, which is the story of Williams, which I appear in somewhat briefly. And I'm also mentioned in the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection, which just came out, which is kind of exciting.
I should ask GameCon future upcoming appearances and game cons. We just had Midwest Gaming Classic last month. Well, we're in June, so it's 2 months ago now. 20, yeah. The streak stands at 21 for me. I don't know how many of those you've attended, but your thoughts on Midwest Gaming Classic?
Midwest Gaming Classic is massive. I was there this year. I think it was my 3rd or 4th time there over the last 10 years or so. But oh my God, it's just so huge. I mean, tons of people. It's very easy to connect. I got to give a talk on my digitizing system and how it was used in all the games at Williams throughout the late 80s and 90s, and that was fun. Yeah, I mean, I generally like going to shows, but I only go to maybe nowadays I go maybe 4 a year, maybe 4 to 6. If I'm invited, I'll go. Mostly I'm trying to go to shows that I had never been to before. Like this year, I'm actually going to go to Utah, to the Utah Retro Gaming Expo. It's my 2nd year in a row there. I had a great time last year. It's a really great show in Salt Lake City or outside Salt Lake City. And I'm also, for the first time, going to the Pittsburgh Retro Gaming Expo in October. The last time I did a show in Pittsburgh, it was a different show. It was called Replay FX. And I went to that a couple of times, but I think the last time was like 2017. So I haven't done anything in the Pittsburgh area for almost 10 years. So I'm happy to be going back to that region. Yeah, I love doing shows, and I love going to different parts of the country and just meeting people. It's really fun.
Yeah, and you could sell merch.
I don't have much merch. I have to tell you. I have my book, and I've created 2 posters that are unique, and as far as I know, you cannot get anywhere else. And one is a dual. Here. One is, yeah, they're not even available up on my. I don't sell them online. I only sell them at shows.
Okay.
One of them is a dual marquee poster. So it's the swearing marquee and the production marquee on one poster. And then the other poster that I sell is it's of the one of a kind, hand drawn original prototype Q Bert marquee. And there's only one that exists. And it's a collector in California has it. And I turned it into a poster. So people, It's the perfect, it's exact size of a Q Bert marquee, but it's a replica of this hand-drawn, one-of-a-kind prototype.
I hope it was scanned before it went to the collector. Um, well, future goals.
Say again?
Future goals. What are your
Oh,
future
future goals.
goals?
Continue breathing. That's
Well,
always
that's
good.
everybody's, but
Yeah, I mean, I think I am quietly slipping into retirement. Doing the things I like to do. I love bicycling, so I try to bicycle. I love traveling. That's one of the reasons I like doing the retro gaming shows. I would love to continue doing that. I love seeing and hanging out with friends, both old and new. So pretty much, yeah, I feel like I'm easing into, I guess what you'd call retirement. And for me, what that means is just do whatever I want when I want.
let me
That
ask
would
you this. How good are your skills? Were you ever any good at playing the games you created?
no. Oh God, no, no. Period. I was in so okay, what was the show I was just in Columbus? Korg's. I was just at Korg's and I went to an arcade in Dublin, Ohio, and I played the Q Bert there and I think I got to like 23,000. 23,000 and change. That's as far as I got.
I
Yeah.
didn't even, you know what? I didn't even ask about pinball or heart or just touched upon it, but didn't because pinball dominated the arcades. Were you any good at pinball? What were your thoughts about pinball in
I,
general?
I can hold my own. I'm no pinball champion. I wouldn't claim to be that, but I love pinball. I love the pinball way more playing pinball, I'm saying. I love playing pinball way more than I love playing video games. I will play pinball at any opportunity. And I love all sorts of, I mean, once if you start going back too far, I'm not in love with the older games. But
Electromechanical.
yeah, from the maybe late 70s on, I've got my favorites, and some of the newer games I just think are just absolutely phenomenal. The tuning of them and the depth of the gameplay. There's nothing like the visceral feel of smacking that ball and having to go somewhere cool and making something cool happen. I love it. Yeah.
Did you work on any pinball machines?
Never.
No
Although,
design credits.
let me take that back. I am the voice of a character in one pinball machine, and that is Whitewater, designed by Dennis Nordman. And I am the character of Wet Willie, who's the main character in that game.
So you got one pinball credit to your name.
That's it. Actually, I did record something for a Shuffle Alley, but you know what Shuffle Alleys are?
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't remember the name of it. I don't remember what I recorded. I do remember I recorded some kind of voice for one Shuffle Alley.
All right. Well, I'm looking at. I didn't write a whole lot of notes because I kind of was going to let you guide things along. I know. I wrote
I
artists
feel like we
down.
covered a lot.
Yes, I did want to cover the same stuff that other gentleman did. That you released an interview you did in two parts, merged together 5 years ago. I see Argus on here. That was game number 500 at Galloping Ghost Arcade. How thrilled were you to see that show up?
Well, it was really, I mean, it's amazing to me that, because that was a game. First of all, that was my first game before Q Bert, but I don't consider it my game because it wasn't my game. It was designed and programmed by a guy named Tom Malinowski. And
who I had on the show.
Okay. And it never got released, but my role on it, because I was literally just hired. So they said, well, here's a good way to learn the hardware, right? Help Tom out, do something. So I did a couple of little things for Tom in that game. Like there's a bulldozer that comes out and pushes the rubble from side to side. That was me. The rubble was me and the bulldozer was me. That's my contribution to Argus. which I've always made fun of because it went through so many names originally when it went out on test. First, it was Protector, then it was Video Man, then it was Guardian, and then it was Argus, and none of them stuck initially, but now it's Argus.
Question from the chat.
Sure.
Matt Buck is asking, how'd you come up with the look for Q Bert? Did they consider other types of creatures like an animal or something?
Well, that's a Jeff Lee question, because Jeff Lee created the character. He created all the characters. I just borrowed them when I needed a game, when I needed characters for a game. But I don't think he looked at any animals. Jeff is really a creative guy, and he has a really whimsical sense of humor, and all of the characters in Q Bert, as well as many others he's created, I think just sprung from his imagination. In the case of Q Bert, I think most people know this, he designed the nose because he thought it would be funny to have a character shoot stuff out of his nose. Like, instead of holding a gun, he's going to shoot snot out of his nose. But
that never got used.
Well, that was not something I needed or wanted for the game I was making. So you're right. It never got used. But
yeah, it would have been something. I don't know how different the game would have turned out if it was like firing balls at enemies, on pyramid. But
yeah, wouldn't really have fit into that original Q Bert concept.
Jeez. I guess that's it. Do you have any thoughts about Gottlieb Ghost Arcade and basically getting a lot of, I don't know, they got every game you've ever worked on that got released in there, or is there
pretty
one
much
they have not locked?
No, I think they've got every game except actually, I don't know if they have Lotto Fun. Maybe they do. I did a redemption.
That was a I think Pixel Blast had it, or Prince Arcades, one or the other.
Yeah,
but it was a game plan title, I believe.
I mean, it was a redemption game, right? It spat out tickets. It really wasn't much of a game, right? It was a game of chance, which I just did. That was a sort of a side project in between other things I was doing. But
here it is. I gotta pull this up now.
Sure.
That's Lotto Fun.
That's Lotto Fun. You basically you pick numbers, and then balls get sucked out of a chute, and some of them will match, and you get tickets based on how many matched.
Wow.
I learned an interesting thing about the lottery. The odds of one or two numbers matching is much greater than the odds of no numbers matching. It's very rare to have no numbers match. It's much more probable that you're going to get one or two numbers to match. I just found that fascinating. When you do all the math, it's all math. Anyway, but Gottlieb Ghost, I was just there not too long ago. I was in Chicago before the Midwest Gaming Classic, and then I went up to Milwaukee. But I love that place. I mean, Doc is an amazing guy, and what he's done for the industry and for keeping these games alive, I cannot praise him enough. I understand Rob's disappointment that 100 games might have been down, but I guess Rob is a glass half empty guy, because if 100 games are down, you know what that means? That means that 900 games are available.
Yes.
So I'm sorry. I can't get too upset about it. I know how hard it is to maintain 1,000 games on your floor, and to have 100 down, I'm going to cut them slack for that. I don't think that's.
They're scattered all over. I mean, it's not like one room of games being down.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and he does rotate games in and out. I mean, the guy Doc Mack is an amazing guy who does an absolute wonderful job at that place. But yeah,
oh gosh,
it's an arcade where you can go and play up to 900 games. All right. Yeah.
Question for the chat. Matt Buck wants to know if you saw the Family Guy Q Bert episodes yet.
I did. I think I've seen all of the Q Bert references that have been in pop culture. Yeah. Simpsons, Family Guy, Moscow on the Hudson. There have been others. Yeah, it's
Wreck-It
very gratifying.
Ralph,
Wreck-It Ralph, of course.
Pixels.
Pixels. Yeah, no, it's very gratifying that some people at least remember the character. A lot of people don't, and that's fine too.
Any predictions for Game 1100? What do you think? Game 1100 is going to be on the Galloping Ghost arcade floor July the 20th.
I have no idea because I can't think of a game that wouldn't be included in the 1,000 that he already has or whatever. Yeah, I can't even imagine.
There's a few There's a few I have in mind that might be Game 1100, but we'll just have to keep thinking about it as the date gets closer. Anything you want to plug before you get out of here?
Wow. Let's see. Well, I mean, if you're going to be in the Salt Lake City area in August or Pittsburgh in October,
Yeah.
please come by and see me. And if you're in a place, if you're in a city that has a retro gaming show and you'd like to see me there, please reach out to the organizers and let them know that. So, they can reach out to me and I'd love to come see you there.
I know Brian Cullen, Paul Niemeyer, Tim Keithrow, Jeff Lee travel to a whole lot of game cons. Paul and Brian do more than I can count.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. They seem to be somewhere every weekend. So
yeah, it's crazy. I literally could not keep up with the schedule like that, but more power to them.
All right.
I love those guys.
She's got a question. Are you coming back to Blackpool, England?
Oh my God. You have no idea how much I loved being in Blackpool. And my friend my friend from Nottingham, Paul Drury, who got me in to that show, when I went to Blackpool and I was just gushing over how cool I thought Blackpool was, he could not stop laughing and going like, Blackpool? You like Blackpool? I guess there's some people in England think Blackpool is like the armpit of the nation, but it reminded me of Coney Island, which is where I grew up. Near Coney Island, and so I just love that type of atmosphere. I loved Blackpool. I would love to go back to Blackpool. Please reach out to the organizers of that show and ask them to invite me back. I'd love to come back.
I know there's there's arcades in the UK. There's that big one in the Czech Republic. There's some in Australia. They have a Q Bert. They definitely have a Q Bert.
I did go to an event in Brisbane, Australia, a few years ago, and that was an amazing trip. I met so many wonderful people who I still keep in touch with through Facebook. I almost got a tattoo. I tattooed Q Bert onto somebody's arm. Long story.
Yeah. All right. If there are no more questions here we go. I've told them to fire the questions out quick, and here they come.
Sure.
What's the coolest piece of Q Bert memorabilia anybody has shown you or brought to you to sign?
Oh, the coolest. Oh my. That's a tough question. I mean, so many people bring me like original art that they've created, and some of it, I mean, I'm looking over my computer screen at it. I have sort of like a Q Bert shrine. It's believe me, it's not big enough. I have way too much stuff to adequately display it all. But when people have put their time and energy into creating Q Bert related art, I'm very fascinated and grateful. And the other thing is tattoos. I've had people show me their Q Bert ink. Some of it's large, taking up a large portion of their body. So I'm just blown away by that kind of level of fandom. So yeah.
Can you show me that picture of Q Bert standing on Pac-Man behind you? Because I see the top of it cut off. Tilt
Yeah.
that up.
So
What we got here?
let me explain what that is. So basically, back in the day at Gottlieb, after Q Bert was released and was a huge success, Rich Tracy, who I mentioned earlier, he was the art director at Gottlieb. He drew that as a gift for me. It's basically Q Bert stomping Pac-Man. And he framed that and gave it to me as a gift, and I've had it ever since. It's one of a kind.
And I think Pac-Man is swearing in that graphic there.
Yes, exactly right.
Right.
Pac-Man's not happy.
No. Although he would eat the balls that Q Bert would be shooting at him, but I don't know. All right, Warren. I want to thank you. Oh, here we go. No, one more. I want to thank you for coming into the Crimeycade tonight. And Matt Buck says, thanks for creating one of the most iconic games of the golden age of arcades. He remembers one of the first times he saw it, and just so iconic.
Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate that.
Tracy says, Q Bert does swear then.
Well, he's not happy. Let's put it that way. I'll agree.
All right. Warren, have a good night, and maybe we'll see you around the arcade soon. Maybe you can come out for anniversary on August the 13th. There are a bunch of people are going to be coming in for that. That's always a big celebration.
What's happening on August 13th?
The Gottlieb Ghost Arcade's anniversary. So I think we're up to year 17 now.
Wow.
Conclusion of the 17th season, and a new Gamer of the Year is going to be crowned. But there's going to be some people from out of town coming in.
I wish I could. I don't believe I am available then. I've got a theater project. I'm directing a play reading that's going on around that exact time.
I guess you have to watch the stream on your phone.
Yeah, I can do that.
All right.
Well, thank you, Stephen.
All right, Warren, have a good night.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, Warren Davis, the original creator of Q Bert. Now I got a few more slides before we get out of here, and I'm going to put this back up on the screen. Score update. And there's been, since I had the storm incident last week. Yes. Stayed up to 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, it's a late nighter for Tracy out there. But it's only 10 o'clock here in America. But I don't know how long it took her to get used to the time, getting back to the time change time zone she lives in. But well, here we go. Samurai Showdown speed run goes to Enzo Razzo. Andrew retakes Aribaldo back from Jim Patzer. Small increase at 394K. Doug Young, Sean Mackey's been on a tear lately. He takes the house high on Doug Young, closing in on 1.3 million. He increases the score on Wonder Boy 3 with a 343K. He topples Pete Hahn's score on Virtua Hexa. That is the one and only Hexa arcade system game on the Gottlieb Ghost arcade floor. It's got 3 more slots for games in there. I'm considering that they are out of room in the arcade. I'm surprised they haven't added any more games to it, because there's been so many re-releases and new titles come out. Sequels to existing shoot 'em ups that are on the arcade floor. Sequels or revisions or enhancements to fighting games. There's a lot of fighting games that get released for that system. But right now, Virtua Hexa stands as the only Hexa arcade game on the floor currently. And it's this kind of same concept as the Neo Geo. Jeff Lucas retakes the high on Silent Dragon, 3.2 million. Marvel Superheroes, Pete Hahn returns to the arcade and takes the house high last Thursday at 2.4 million points. I do have that one Underground Retrocade score from Jeff Stellman, 0.2. That's kind of like point blank. just over 27,000 points. Page 2, Andrew Iwasco on the recent Monday mystery game, 383,000 on Breakthrough from Data East. War of the Worlds. Now, that was a game that's been down for quite some time, but apparently it's back online. So, there's been a fight over that score, and Andrew Iwasco breaks 39,000 on that title. I think Sean Mackey had that for a bit, but Andrew took that one back. That was a T20 game. Sean Mackey's been fighting over double wings, and Jamie Tibbetts stepped in yesterday to retake that score at 712,000. I'm still learning that game. Apparently, certain bosses require a certain type of power up. I've been just kind of using the blue shot, but I need to switch to the yellow one for the bosses. So I haven't fully learned that mechanic yet. Pinon was also in yesterday to retake the house high for Gerdekian at 1.6 million. John Liming had, War of the Worlds. I think Liming had that one, and Andrew took it back. But John Liming took the Crime City score back from Lord BBH Matt Race and the prototype. I didn't even ask Warren if he had any involvement with this curveball, but I think that was a Jeff Lee thing. Andrew gets the blowout at 19 runs over his opponent, winning 21-2. And the chase of the tokens continues to go up as Andrew continues to add tokens to his total. And the power rankings, because scores are being taken from Jim Patzer, Mossie's, Liming, Tibbetts, Hahn. They're trading scores with each other, but no change in the rank currently, other than Ben Falls and Matt Hall moving up. Although, with that first score being taken from Matt Hall, he has a bit of distance fall. He had the chance to move up the rankings further if they play his games, but that ain't happening. The Game of the Year odds, and not really much of a change other than I have put Sean Mackey on here. Sean Mackey has been on a tear. He may be making a late run for the Game of the Year, although he's got some room. He's got some work to do. He probably needs to start tackling some of those challenge cards. But Sean Mackey, pretty much assume a specialist, as is Jamie Tibbetts, and these two guys are going to be going back and forth on a number of games, it's looking like. Mossie's, he plays at the arcade 9 months out of the year. But because of baseball season happening in the summer months, before anniversary, Mossie's goes quiet, and it's kind of cost him twice. So if if this is gonna be his year to win the Game of the Year, he better find a way to play at the arcade in between handling baseball season for the kids. But then again, Doc Beck says he can give Game of the Year based on one weekend of work. So why not give that same consideration to Mossie's over a span of 9 months? Because Lord BBH did all he did, breaking into the top 15 in a week's bit of work in between Combo Breaker. And of course, we got the two front runners, Andrew and Claudio. They are the front runners. Claudio's completed The highest challenge card. I think he's on level 9, as is Andrew. I don't know if Clay is completed level 9 as of yet. Mossy's has completed more cards than anybody. But it's still anybody's game. Right now. There's a lot. It's going to be a hard choice. And who are the dark horses in that in this other 20%? All others combined. It's going to be a photo finish, I think. And who's going to get that last word in? Arcade Wars. The game of the month is King of Fighters 98. Other than one score from One Up Arcade Australia, scores haven't come in for this yet. And we got a couple of weeks to go. Missouri Game Con, July 25th, 2026 at the Greensfelder Recreation Complex at 550 Wildman Road in Winchester, Missouri. I will be there for that. Who's my guest next week? Actually, Pinball Expo, October 14th through the 17th, 2026. It's year 42 for that. Now, Mike, and if you are a gamer, yes, I'm looking for guests. I'm always looking for guests every week. Working gaming, touring competitor, create content, have notoriety, gaming fanatic, or maybe you're a game designer like we had. Let's talk. Send me a message here on Facebook.com/Crimeycade. Yes, I know. Claudio to win. Still on level 9 with 5 games done. Just 1 game for finishing. A level 6 card, a level 3 card, and 2 games from a level 2 card. Yes, and Tracy says, feel free to do my level 3. So, guest next week will be, and yes, Sean is an official. Now, this is the first Tiny Tim nickname. I don't know about that. Anyway, I'd like to have Sean on my pod sometime in the future. We'll see. My guest next week will be Cody Silva. Cody Silva, he is a musician, producer, retro streamer. He is also a contender at several of the retro gaming championships here at the Game On Expo back in Arizona a few months ago. Correct us off. Okay, that's a disc-based game. Hopefully they'll get that back up. He'll be the guest next week here on the Crimeycade podcast. And do I have something? Nope, that's it. We're supposed to announce our guest for the first week of July, but I don't have the graphic yet because he wanted to make the slide himself and send it to me. So anyway, that'll do it for this edition of the Crimeycade podcast, and we'll see you next week. I am going to raid a channel, so let's throw this up here. Who am I gonna raid this week? Who's streaming? And I'm gonna play that retro gaming challenge. My goodness. Well, I got a few choices here. I'm gonna raid somebody I haven't yet. Retro Raji, and I talked to him at the Midwest Gaming Classic. So he's playing the Donkey Kong Challenge. All the Donkey Kong classics, can't get them all. We're gonna give the raid for him tonight. Maybe I'll get him. I've been asking him to be a guest on my pod, but anyway, have a good night, everybody. Thank you all for joining me. Let me shout out my who are still in here. Hitter Shack, Jack Cogs, Nightmare James, Stupendous Man, Tracy, Pancreas. Thank you. Thank you for coming in tonight. And everybody watching on Facebook. Have a good night, everybody.